Welcome everyone to this episode of Shirley Talk. I'm Mike Mulready.
I'm Kelly Duckworth.
Kelly, every time. You a doctor?
Nope.
Nurse?
Nope.
We got an attorney in the office today, but are you an
Not
attorney?
I'm not
Legal
an attorney.
field, nothing, tax accountant?
No.
Okay, we do that every day just to make sure that if you hear us say something, to get professional advice. We like to be correct on things, but, everybody's wrong sometimes, so I guess Kelly will admit she's wrong every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we just want to make sure that if you hear us say something or hear our guests say something, that you please get professional advice.
Entertainment purposes only.
Entertainment, educational. So today we have the Honorable Judge David Holton. So do we still address you as judge since you're retired?
That always makes me happy.
Absolutely, I bet.
Worked hard for that title.
It looked like you retired, was it in 17?
2017, right?
2017. Yeah, we'd looked that up, and I knew it had been a while. But you've had quite the journey. I had known that you were blind over the years, but I didn't know how that happened. So you had sight at one time?
Till I was 10 years old when a brain tumor that had gone undetected for over half a year. 8 or 9 months, my parents have been taking me to doctors, and the brain tumor went undetected until one day the sight just went kaboom.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And there were headaches and weird vision, things going on, flashing and so forth. But despite my parents' greatest efforts with medical inquiries, by the time that the doctor actually said it's a brain tumor, the optic nerve had been damaged by the tumor. But my sight that I have is not functional. It's not usable. I mean, I'm not in total darkness, put it that way.
But you can see a little bit, I guess.
I can't count fingers. I can't see faces. I can't read. But I'm not in total darkness, and that's a blessing.
Yeah.
But it was a blessing having sight for 10 years. It helps me put things into perspective. Like when I go to a college football game or a high school football game, I know what the surroundings look like because I attended plenty of those as a child. When I go to the ocean, I know what the ocean looks like because before I lost my sight, my parents and my family and I visited the ocean a couple of times.
Right.
When I go to the mountains, I know what they look like because we were at mountains. When I'm riding across the lake on a boat, I know what that looks like because I did that as a child.
So you kind of paint the scenery in your head since you've seen it before, which is a blessing, like you said, because a lot of people in your circumstance, they probably have no idea what certain things look like. So that's really good.
Yeah, I thank God for the 10 years of sight, and it's honestly, Mike and Kelly, it's not something I think about. It's not something I walk around and say, damn, I wish I could see.
No, but you've done so well. So that's really what, it's funny. My son, I got 3 kids, and he said something to me the other day. He's like, how does someone that can't, and he just said, he had no idea I was going to talk to you today. Just out of the clear blue, he's very inquisitive. He's like, how do people without sight learn how to talk? How do they, but you had 10 years of it. So, but you had said once in a quote that your other senses have taken over. You can feel when someone is smiling, and you can hear somebody
smiling. Right?
Yeah. So that's interesting.
Well, I don't believe that your other senses improve. I don't think that I can hear better than anyone else or smell better, especially after COVID. You can't smell much, but I believe it's just a matter of being more aware and more alert and better tuned in to what's around you in terms of hearing things. I don't think that the sense of hearing actually improves. I think it's just a matter of being more
focused,
attentive.
Yeah.
Right.
So being a judge sitting on the bench, you probably heard some pretty rude stuff that most people wouldn't have tuned in on in the audience.
People asked me one time, do you think it was a detriment to your function as a judge to be blind? I personally think it was a benefit.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be about what one looks like.
I agree.
It's about what one has done. I remember early in my judgeship, an African-American attorney approached me after court one day and said,
I know where this is going.
Said, I had this young black dude in court today. And before we went in, I said to him, now, when we go in here, remember, this judge is blind. And the young man said, That's good, isn't it? So
Can't see that he's black, hoping that he doesn't get treated unfairly, and the way the crazy world is. So
absolutely. I mean, I don't care if you can come into my court with, piercings all over your face, tattoos up and down your neck, wearing whatever, and I would never know it. And it's a matter of, it shouldn't be who you are. It should be what you did.
Yeah.
That should determine how justice is served.
I wish
agree.
everyone had that motto.
I do, but it leans into something pretty good, because I've said for years that to take away bias, they should do blind job interviews. So you can't see if someone is overweight. You can't see if they've got piercings. You can't judge them on tattoos or judge them by their race. It should be a blind, no pun intended, but it should be a interview online that you can't actually see the person and just judge them based on their character and not on what they look like.
When I was running for judge, I stood for election 3 times, and my campaign ads, I would say, justice is supposed to be blind, and in my courtroom, it really is.
Well, it's good that you can joke about that, but yeah, it's so true. You can't. Has it ever come up where somebody standing there pleading their case that says you're treating me wrong because I'm this or I've got tattoos, and you say, well, that's interesting because I can't see you anyway?
No, but I did have a couple of people want me to recuse myself from the case because I was blind.
Really?
Yeah, I was sitting in arraignment court, which is, when I was on the bench, it was in the jail. You may have seen on television before, they had the judge sitting in the jail and the defendants are behind the glass, and this guy walks up to the window, the defendant, after his case was called, and he said, "You're the blind judge, aren't you?" And I said, "Yep." He said, "You're not qualified to be a judge because you can't see."
Wow.
I said, "Really?" He said, "Yep, I don't accept you." So I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, we'll just roll your case till tomorrow then. You're going to stay right where you are because I'm the only judge here today."
So he got to sit in jail for another day.
And
huh?
guess who was the judge again the next day in arraignment court?
Yep.
That's hilarious.
He got to sit there the next day too.
So he let his bias of you for no reason.
Yeah. And I think it was actually after 3 days, I wasn't in arraignment court that next morning, and I guess he finally got out. But it was, but I didn't try to argue with him. I just said, that have your way. Honestly, I would have let him out the first day, but for him saying, I would have. His case was so minuscule, or so, I had a lot bigger fish to fry than him.
So you should have changed your wording. You should have said, "Look, son, I was actually going to let you out today, but since you don't want me, you can sit here for a few more days versus you can just stay." That's hilarious, man. I tell you. We got to get bias out of the picture. It's sad that people are treated the way they are just because of what they look like. And it doesn't make any sense to me at all.
It's about what you've done, not who you are.
Yeah.
That's how the court system should be.
Well, hopefully we'll get back to that one day, because it's sad. Some of the things we see going on in this country, it's based on what they look like and not what they've done. If we can really zero back in on that, and maybe it might eliminate some of the things going on in the world, because that's what it needs to boil down to, is what you've done.
Right. It really should. And I support the movement afoot to eliminate cash bail in Kentucky.
There's a I
Piece
don't
of
know what it's called.
legislation.
Yeah, it's coming up. Yeah, Madeline's bill, right?
I'm not sure what it's called, but it has to do with in federal court and also in juvenile court. There are no cash bail. There is no cash bail, I should say. It's whether you just keep them or let them go, detain or release.
Yeah.
And when I was, I spent 4 of my 10 years on the bench, I was in juvenile court. And when I would go there, it was really a change of pace, because in adult court, it's cash bond in Kentucky, except for a capital offense. That's the only time you can deny a bond in capital offenses, when someone's facing a death penalty as a result of the charges. But the juvenile system is, when the kid comes in, you either keep them or release them. And that's the same way it is in federal court. And I would prefer to see that adopted uniformly all across Kentucky. It would require a constitutional amendment. I believe that would be the most just way of our legal system in Kentucky operating.
So no bail, is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying no bail. I'm saying either keep them or
Yep.
release them. So
Yep.
I'll give you an example. The Greenberg case last week. Remember that?
Yep. I know it
The guy
well.
walked in and tried to
Yep.
kill
Yep.
the mayoral candidate and four of his cohorts. I mean, that guy got a $100,000 bond. There should never been a chance for him to be released. It should have just say, this guy's detained until your next court date, and you just continue to review it. Instead, someone put a $100,000 bond on him, which was way too low. If I'd have been the judge, it'd have been at least
For attempted murder.
it'd have been at least $500,000. Okay,
Yeah.
and but so then along comes somebody and posts that bond. There's no way that whether it was the guy's family who did it. Let's say you're from a wealthy family, Mike. Is it just? Would it have been just if that had been a son of a rich family, and they walked through and gave him $100,000 to the court so he can get out? No. Was it just that this community bail project organization bailed him out for $100,000? No. So nobody should have been able to bail that guy out.
Right. I agree.
So how does the judge choose how much they want to set the bail as? Just their own opinion and
Based on the charges, based on the likelihood of that person coming back to court, past criminal record, past reliability of the person getting back to court. You're supposed to consider also the financial means of the person charged. I will tell you that I became a lot better judge the longer I was on the bench, the more experience I had with setting bonds. In my 10 years on the bench, I probably set 20,000 bonds or more, okay? And my early bonds, when I was a brand new judge, I didn't really have anything to compare these cases to. And it's just like a basketball refereeing his first basketball game. Was that a charge or was it just incidental contact? Was it did that guy step on the line over there or not? The more experience you get, the better you become at calling balls and strikes. And it's the same thing with the judge, in my opinion, because the more cases you handle, the more then you know what a case is worth. And the same thing worked for me when I was a prosecutor. You come to understand what a case is really, really worth, how many pounds of flesh you need to get from the dude, because of what he did. So the more experience you have, the better prosecutor I became, and the better judge I became.
But what you said is perfect, because I've talked to other politicians about this, but what the general public doesn't realize is it fair that a person is rich and can afford the bail, or do they even need to be released anyway? Just because you got the means doesn't mean it's fair for them to go in and pay to let the person out when they don't need to be out anyway.
Well, I'll just give you an example. Jason Nemus is a friend of mine, okay?
Yeah.
State representative. And he has a bill in front of the legislature now that would outlaw these bail organizations from bailing people out if they're charged with a violent offense. At least that's my understanding of the legislation. Now, let's take this guy who shot at Greenberg last week, Mike. Let's say he came from a rich family, okay?
Yep.
Let's say he was part of the Brown Foreman family, all right?
Yep.
And he walks in and judge gives him a $100,000 bond. Well, the Brown family going to walk down and say, "Here's your $100,000."
Yeah, no big deal. Yep.
Circuit court clerk.
Yep.
Boom, he's out. If you outlaw this organization being able to do that, then they wouldn't be, that they couldn't have done what they did. But regardless, neither the Brown family or the bail organization should be able to do that. It should be a keep or release.
Yeah. Based on what they're
What
detriment to
done.
society. Yeah.
Not who you are, but what you've done.
I agree with that.
So we should eliminate all cash bail and either keep them or release them. The judge will still have the opportunity for home incarceration as a way to monitor. You could do the day reporting center. You have which is where the person has to check in daily and show that they have a job and that they're staying clean. And at the same time, we have the mental health services of 7 County Services, which is a great organization. here in Jefferson and 6 surrounding counties. So it's I've lived this. I'm 59 years old. I've been in the judicial. I started practicing law in 1989 when I was 27. How did I get to be so old? But
Seems like yesterday.
it does. But I enjoyed my 19 years as a prosecutor, my 10 years as a judge, first blind judge in Kentucky. God's been so good to me, blessed me with wonderful parents and wonderful public school teachers and family and friends. And most people in my situation don't get to do what I do. And I understand that. But for some reason, God blessed me with some ability and some talent. And I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but God has blessed me. Most people in my situation don't do what I do. But I'd feel obliged to take whatever God has given me and use it for the betterment of society. I can't just sit on the bench and, I retired from the bench 4 years ago. So, but I never retired. I just went straight to practicing law again. I had my time I just decided it was time to move along and return to practicing law. I still had time on my term and was up for re-election the next year, but I decided I'd had enough after 10 years. Let's go do something else. I kind of get restless sometimes with what I'm doing. I like new challenges. So I went back to practicing law, and now I'm in an adventure where I'm seeking to be the next Jefferson County attorney. And the election is on May 17th. I believe we need a change in that office. The guy who's there has been there 15 years, and that's long enough.
Yeah.
This community is not better off today than it was 15 years ago in terms of our streets and our safety levels in our communities. And this town cannot continue. This Jefferson County cannot continue to give the same old answers to the same old problems, because those same old problems aren't getting any better. We need a fresh approach with new answers to our old problems and to our current problems.
So you're running for county attorney.
Yes,
Against,
Jefferson
is it
County
McConnell,
attorney.
O'Connell? What's his name?
O'Connell.
Yeah.
Mike O'Connell's been there since 2008. George W. Bush was president when Mr. O'Connell took office.
Yeah, I've heard that name for a while, but so that's the one that, and you alluded to this, that this town is not safe anymore. It's very difficult. But you see, the guy that shot at Greenberg, there's some. I'm for giving people a chance, but but at what point do they become a detriment to society, and how do you define that? If someone has been in trouble 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, they're not figuring it out. And we need some place to send these people to help get them the services that they need. Jail is just going to harden somebody and make them even worse in a lot of cases. But yeah, but they have to have some place they can go to change their thoughts or something. I don't know what the exact wording is. But what do you do to somebody that keeps breaking the law over and over and over? What's the solution? I don't know what that is, but
behavioral health care has been a big part of my life for many years.
Yep.
Because I recognized that as a new prosecutor back in the late 80s, early 90s, and as a judge, I lived it for 10 years. I actually served on the 7 counties board of directors for 9 years, 3 of which I was chairman of the board. And I was fond of telling both juveniles and adults in court that you cannot make a good decision until you're equipped to make that good decision. In other words, until you get the proper behavioral health care and get your meds, if that's what you need, and get your therapy and your counseling, then you're not going to be able to make that proper decision to keep yourself out of trouble. I totally believe that we could address a lot of our problems in this society if people had the proper behavioral health care, and that has to do with severe mental illness, alcohol and drug addictions, and then developmental disabilities. Our criminal justice system might just go out of business if people ever received the proper behavioral health care.
And I think that's what it boils down to is mental illness and not knowing. A lot of people that get in trouble were raised by troublemakers. If you've got a drug addict raising a kid, the odds of that kid turning into a drug addict are pretty good.
Yes, sir. May I give you an example? One day as the judge in juvenile court, they bring these 2 young ladies out of the back where they're being held in custody, and they bring them in the courtroom in front of me there, and I asked the people in the audience, and tell me who you are, because in juvenile court it's confidential, so only interested family can come into the court, or the victims of the alleged crimes can come into the court. So I turned to the to audience. I said, "So tell me your name, please." And she says, "I'm their mother." "And who are you, ma'am?" "I'm their grandmother." And I read the complaint, and it has to do with these two young ladies and their mother having seriously assaulted another young lady. And that's why these two girls are in custody.
So the mom and
the mom is one of the three defendants. Okay,
yeah, I get it.
And suddenly the grandmother steps up and says, "Judge, I think you should recuse yourself from this case." I said, "Why is that, ma'am?" She says, "Because you were my judge too."
So the three generations.
Goodness.
I got grandma there saying you were my judge a few years ago. Then I got mama sitting here in the courtroom on home incarceration for the assault that the two girls are actually in custody. And,
Yeah.
I call it generational dysfunction.
Yeah,
okay?
it's true.
Generational dysfunction. So these two girls are standing there, and I told the mother, she said, "Let my girl come home." I said, "Lady, you're on home incarceration. You were allegedly involved in this event, and I've got witnesses saying you were." Because she had been in adult court,
yeah,
and the two girls were in juvenile court. So I said, "You go turn in your HIP equipment, and you go back to jail, and I'll let your daughter come home." No.
Generational.
I said, "Well, I'm not going to send her home to you with what you allegedly have done here, and looking at your criminal record. The last thing she needs to do is have your influence on her."
Oh my goodness.
I don't know what the answer is, because I used to do a lot of work in a school, and the counselor, I would sit in her office, and she'd say, "See that young man right there? Yep. They were involved in a drive-by shooting last night, and they slipped on the floor under the window base because of the shootings, and they were scared to get up. See that young man over there? He went home last night. Nobody was home, and he didn't have dinner. See that young lady over there?" And she just constantly kept pointing out these kids that are in traumatic situations. Now, what are the odds of those kids becoming good citizens? Because all they see is that kind of thing. So I don't know how to fix this. It's going to take some money to build facilities where people have a place to go. Do we have any place like that to send people these days? Used to, we did, but I don't know if we do or not.
Yeah, there were plenty of community-based services around, but people have to want the services. People have to quit using the drugs. People have to want to quit using. In order to stop using drugs, you got to want to stop using drugs.
Yeah.
When I was a judge, we also created, and I was the first judge in the first Veterans Treatment Court in Kentucky.
I saw that.
And so I'm very proud. It's probably the crowning accomplishment of my judicial career was having created the first Veterans Treatment Court. There's about a half dozen around the state now. But I used to tell the veterans of Veterans Treatment Court, in order to turn your life around, you have to want to, because this program is too tough. If you don't want to, if you want to go back to using your drugs and getting drunk every night, then go for it. But you're not going to be in this court, because in this court you're going to comply with our rules and our regulations. I'll give you every encouragement I can to get your life back together so you can get back with your kids, and so that you and your wife can raise your kids together. But it's not going to be an easy path to it. Veterans Treatment Court was not a get out of jail free card. It was a tough program with a lot of requirements on you. But most of the veterans succeeded. Most of the veterans in the treatment court did succeed, and it's still functioning. I left the bench in 2017. I ran the court for 5 or 6 years before I retired, and now Judge Mitch Perry, a circuit court judge here in Jefferson County, oversees the court, and I understand it's still going well.
Good. Veterans, they have some sort of discipline that they learned in the military that probably helps them think, all right, maybe I really do need to get my shit together. But, you got these people. I'm for military style, and I hate to call them camps, but, after especially at a certain age, if they've broken the law more than I don't know how many times, they need to have, because probably they have no family structure at home that is kind of helping them learn right from wrong. I just think we got a lot of people out there that have grown up with no structure, and they probably don't fully understand right from wrong. Could be a possibility. I don't know.
There is a facility down in Hardin County called the Bluegrass Academy that a few times when I was the judge in juvenile court, that was a referral that they received, was the Bluegrass Academy. I would prefer to build a strong juvenile rather than try to reform one. Put it that way.
Yeah, me too.
Get out in front of the game rather than have to deal with the disaster that they're living. That's just the most humane way of doing it.
Yeah, I agree. You see, these younger people get involved in situations where there's a lot of money involved, and they get a taste of that maybe lifestyle of the kind of money it brings in, and maybe they get too far into that and see how much money they can make illegally versus doing the right thing, and it's tough to turn them around at that point.
Yeah, they get a taste of the high living.
What they think is the right life, yeah.
But it doesn't turn out well. Obviously, disastrous lives are wasted. Potential is wasted. And, there's a saying I heard one time, and that is that community is only as strong as its weakest link.
Yeah.
It's like a chain, okay? A chain is only as strong as its weakest link, right?
Yep.
Because you pull on that chain, if all the links aren't strong, it's going to pop, it's going to break. And that's the way we have to view our county, is that we're only as strong as our weakest zip code or as strong as our weakest neighborhood, because those negative activities or negative results in that zip code or in that neighborhood are going to affect the rest of our county by bringing us down and needing more of our tax dollars and more of our services to address those inadequacies. So we've got to invest in our people. Human resources has to be our number one goal. We have to have safe streets and administer justice fairly and equitably. And that's the way I tried to administer justice when I was on the bench.
Yeah. With the way things are, anybody that I talk to feels like the criminals are winning. Because so many are just let go back into society and they keep repeat offending. So, hopefully if you're elected that, some of those things will change, because it's definitely weird worrying about your son or daughter driving off, knowing, I know I know 2 instances where people were hijacked at gunpoint and they were kids, and they're still not right. They've got PTSD worrying about driving to the grocery store because they were assaulted with a weapon put to their head and their car was stolen. Well,
there are way too many guns on the streets.
Yeah.
And when I was the judge in juvenile court, there was an epidemic of kids breaking into cars or going into unlocked cars and taking people's guns. I mean, why the hell is somebody going to leave a gun in an unlocked car or in a car at all? Look, I'm not against the Second Amendment, so be it. And if people are going to carry for their own personal safety, then so be it. But you've got to be a responsible gun owner.
Yeah.
Got to be a responsible gun owner and exercise responsible gun ownership.
Yeah, because I would say those guns stolen are probably used in a lot of the crimes that happen around town, around the country, actually.
Yeah. And there's also legislation in Frankfurt right now that would allow a county who has confiscated guns to be able to destroy those guns. Apparently now there's a law that says those guns have to be auctioned off.
They're probably resold to offenders, I would imagine.
I say we take them and melt them down, okay?
Yeah.
And if a guy wants to buy a gun, let him go through the
proper channels.
Right.
Yeah.
Proper channels.
Yeah. I'm all for guns, but I do believe that people should not get them that shouldn't have them, and we need to try and make sure that it's difficult for somebody that could have some mental illness to get a gun.
That's why I'm in favor also of the red flag laws that would allow a person, a family member, or someone acquainted with an individual who they believe is going through a time when they're not stable and shouldn't have a gun, to where we could go take those guns away until the issue is resolved. And again, it's not anti-gun, but it's pro-safety and it's pro-life.
Yeah.
Pro keeping somebody alive.
Yeah, there's too many instances where we might know that Kelly's crazy and she shouldn't have a gun, and she can go buy one, but maybe on the application they have to ask 3 family members or something to see if they can say that this person's stable.
Or if they've got a gun, if this person already had a gun, and then they started displaying certain behavior, then I believe that a family member should be able to petition the court to say, hey, let's get this person some care, and in the meanwhile, we need to get that gun away from them.
Yeah, and I know you remember the Westbecker thing. That was probably the first shooting, and I know the family of Mr. White. And, you know, there was a lot of discussion back then, and I don't know where it went because I try not to pay attention to that stuff, but there was a lot of discussion about Westbecker was on some drugs that made him make bad. Was it Prozac or something? I don't know what it was.
Yeah, it
but
was
anyway,
Prozac.
Yeah, at some point, if a doctor issues a certain drug to somebody, do they say, all right, do you have weapons at home? I don't know what it looks like. But, you know, maybe certain drugs that are prescribed by doctors is a red flag, like you said, that says, hey, this person probably shouldn't have weapons in their home. So I don't know how that would look like, but it would make a lot of sense to me.
But guess what? That's common sense.
It's not. Yeah, I know.
But guess what? Common sense isn't very common, is
I was
it?
going to say, you being a judge, you know, there's not a whole lot of common sense out there. I've had rental property for 20-something years, and I see a lot of stuff that you would think would be common sense that isn't. So
I'm with you.
Yeah. So, you know, I would say the general public doesn't understand how the judge things work. So you're running for county attorney, which means you'll be on a ballot. And I would say the average person probably walks in the ballot booth and checks off the name that they may have heard over the past 3 weeks.
Right. This is a Republican versus Democrat. It's not like a judge.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a nonpartisan race. Judges are nonpartisan races. But this is a Democratic primary. I'm a Democrat. My opponents are Democrats. And there is a Republican who's filed. He'll be on the ballot in November against whichever of us win the Democratic primary. The county attorney's office is in Kentucky. The county attorney's office represents the government of the county. So in this county, we represent the metro government. Okay?
City of Louisville, right?
Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah.
Everything from the mayor to the metro council to the solid waste board to the zoning adjustment to the police and fire department. You represent all of those entities of
Which
government.
includes Shively area as well? Is that all considered Louisville now?
No, Shively has their own.
Okay.
Well, I mean, people in Shively, people in J-Town can vote for Jefferson County Attorney,
Okay.
but they have their own separate governments.
Okay.
So is there not a term limit on county attorney?
No,
No.
should be.
Yeah.
I think there should be term limits on all political
Yeah, I think so,
positions.
too.
So in addition, though, to representing the metro government, also the county attorney is charged with prosecuting the criminal cases in district court, and that is both felonies and misdemeanors. Number one, all misdemeanors are held and conducted and administered in district court. Most felonies start in district court. If a case is going to be pursued by the government as a felony, however, it cannot be resolved in district court. It goes on to the grand jury and then on from there to circuit court. So the county attorney would be the prosecutor in arraignment court, as we've been talking about. There was a county attorney was involved in that very low bond set in the Greenberg case last week.
Yeah.
They also would prosecute felonies, again, in district court if they don't go up to circuit. Cases like drunk driving, domestic violence, drug and alcohol charges, gun charges. Most cases start in district court. So it's setting the tone for the community and how justice is going to be administered. You know, we must insist, and this is rather the motto of my campaign, we must insist on law and order as a way of life in this community. We must insist on law and order as a way of life in this community. In addition to the prosecuting responsibilities, the county attorney also oversees the collection of child support from people who won't pay.
But that's entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I tell you, I hear, in my private practice, I primarily practice probate and estate work, and but I get some calls about some family court cases sometimes, and I've got women who call me and say, "Well, my ex owes me $80,000. My ex owes me $110,000." Well, I said, "Well, go to the county attorney." "Well, I have, and they won't do anything. He's still running around." So I would like to crack down on deadbeat parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
And bring them to the door of justice and see where that door leads them.
Yeah, because if they're deadbeat parents at that early an age, the kids are going to end up eventually, probably, in most cases, statistically, probably going to turn out to be a problem of some sort. So it's just sad that that's true. So
not fair to the kids to do without.
But that's kind of the underlying problems, though. You see a young person in front of a judge about ready to go to jail, and I totally agree that we have to figure out the root cause of why that person was there. How do we fix the root cause? But I don't know that you always have time for that or the resources, because if you determine the root cause is how the kid was brought up, how do you get them adjusted to back to society? It's such a weird spot to be in.
Well, I'll give you another example of a case that I handled as a juvenile judge. It was spring of 2017, and it was Derby week. And a lady was at the Galt House, and she was walking out to her car when, lo and behold, she's stopped by a little 12-year-old dude with a gun. 12 years old.
I got a 13-year-old at home.
A 12-year-old, and guess who else there was? And he had two compadres. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I think one was 16, the other one was 14, but the 12-year-old had the gun. And apparently, the 14 or 16-year-old followed the woman into the parking garage, and the other dude was standing behind a car. So all of a sudden, here she is, with this 12-year-old holding a gun on her. Well, the 16 and 14-year-old jump in the car, but the 12-year-old's driving the car, okay?
Oh, my gosh.
It's not a laughing matter, but...
So he's got leadership potential. Is that
I'm
what
going
you're
to say
saying?
this. As a judge, if you can't laugh at some of this stuff, you go crazy, okay?
Absolutely.
So don't be offended when I laugh about it.
No, not at
But
all.
you got this... So the lady's left standing there in the parking garage, and these three juveniles are speeding out of the Galt House parking garage. The 12-year-old driving, he makes a right on Main Street and crashes into a Porsche somewhere down around 8th or 9th Street. And all three of the juveniles wound up going to the hospital. Well, the 12-year-old was hurt the worst. So he's in the hospital, and the county attorney saying, haul his butt to the juvenile detention center. I said, you can't do that. He's in the hospital. Well, he's a flight risk. I said, well, I think both his legs are broken. I don't think he's going anywhere right now.
Yeah. Wow.
So when it was time for him to be released from the hospital, the county attorney started yelling in, put him in the detention center. But the detention center saying, we don't have medical staff to care for him. He has to someone help him to the bathroom. We have to make sure he gets his medicine, blah, blah, blah. County attorney says, lock him up. And I said, well, he's still got two broken legs. I don't think he's going anywhere. Apparently, he's very immobile. So I sent him home. But I told the public defender, his lawyer, and I told the kid as well. Actually, the kid wasn't in court because he couldn't get there. But I said, when the proper time comes, I reserve the right to detain you.
Yeah.
Well, the time came, and the day he walked in on his little walker, okay, I said, now is the time. Take him back. And I number one, a 12-year-old with a gun. Number two, a 12-year-old driving. I mean, he wound up going off to camp, which is the juvenile form of prison. Okay, but
yeah,
there are no bars or anything. They're just camps out around the state. I don't know, maybe 24 or a dozen of them. But that was another example of a kid who who went the wrong way. He and his two compadres. Hey, I had a kid one time. He was like an urban cowboy. Okay, he was a little 12-year-old riding around on his bike with a gun. Okay, so it was like Billy the Kid. Rather than have a horse and a gun, he had a bike and a gun. You don't, unless you lived it, you wouldn't believe the stuff that goes on in juvenile court.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the stuff that the general public doesn't understand. And, throwing a kid like that in jail is going to serve no purpose. We have to figure out how to get, especially at that early age, how to figure out how to turn their life around. But, that takes time and effort and money. And we're going to have to figure out how to fund this stuff because, again,
Well, this is another point that I battled as a juvenile judge. You want to reform these kids, okay?
Yeah.
So I've got these kids sitting in the detention center downtown on Jefferson Street between 7th and 8th. And I'm saying, what kind of services are over there at the youth detention center to help these kids? Well, the director, Mr. Williams, at the time, he said, I am not a reform center. I am a detention center.
Wow.
I said, really? Well, whatever you're doing isn't working, and we need to get some services in there. So I think it's better than it was, but, you got to be able to reform these kids otherwise. And for every day they're sitting in there surrounded by others who are apparently going off in the wrong direction, or they wouldn't be there to start with. Every day is just a wasted day if you don't address the issue every day with these kids.
Yeah, I think we have to have resources. But the problem is just writing a check doesn't fix it. You have to figure out what you're going to do with the check. And to me, if you've got kids in detention center and they're going to be there for a while, teach them how to play the guitar. Show them how to become an electrician. Show them how, give them something that they might be interested in. If they have something that they would be interested in versus criminal activities, it might help turn their life around. I don't know. Music changes lives. Learning how to do something with your hands changes your life. Something that's going to give them something that they might want to learn and pursue, versus crime.
That, and again, get back to that behavioral health care.
Yeah.
Back to that proper behavioral health system to teach them, to help them be able to make good decisions.
Yeah.
That's what's to help them make good decisions.
Yeah, because they're not learning it at home. We're naive to think that I had a good childhood. Kelly had I don't know. That's questionable. No, I'm just kidding. Kelly had a good childhood. You have a good childhood. We assume that everybody has good childhoods and are raised right, and that's just not the case. And if the general public could understand that, maybe we would be more empathetic into trying to find the proper solution versus just throw them in jail. They're no good, because that's not the answer.
It certainly isn't, and that is another point that I like to bring to your attention, and that is, as a judge, I ended the routine shackling of juveniles,
in your
kids
courtroom
in juvenile court.
Yeah, I saw that.
It was a momentous day when I called the sheriff's office and the prosecutor's office and the public defenders in, and I said, hey, starting a week from Monday, we're not going to shackle everybody who comes into the court from the detention center. We're going to take the chains off before they come in the courtroom. And I said, we'll continue to shackle the ones charged with murder, but we're going to go on a case-by-case basis. And unless I tell you otherwise, take the chains off. The sheriff were like, we can't do that. And I said, we are going to do it.
You own that courtroom, so you can make that decision.
Right. I said,
Yep.
I can't make you take the chains off before you get them to the courtroom door. And why? And I said, well, number one, because I said so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Number two, because we got to teach these young folks that we respect them enough, and you treat someone like a criminal, they're going to be a criminal.
Yeah.
It just perpetuates that mindset that's brought them this far. And my statement at the time was, it's inevitable, but there will be an incident where, because the cuffs are off, that there's something that happens that shouldn't. But it won't mean that taking the chains off was the wrong decision. It was the right decision. And it continues to this day that once I ordered the chains off in December of 2016 to this day, they don't. It's not a routine shackling of every kid. I'm talking about kids who would just be charged with shoplifting, or kids who would just be charged with possession of alcohol, or some minor assault case on another kid. But they were all shackled, and it wasn't any need for it. So I ended that, and I'm proud to say that it continues. But look, we still shackle. They're still shackling the ones with the serious offenses, the guys who we should be concerned about safety.
Yeah, it's if you treat people with respect, you're going to get it back. And I think we need to start differentiating between criminals that, and I hate to use the word criminal, the people that are going to be a detriment to society, versus people that have done something that they need some guidance on.
Well, one of my former colleagues, Judge McKay Chavan, says we need to identify the difference between those people that we're mad at and the people who we're afraid of.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
Because there's a lot of difference between the people we're mad at and the people we're afraid of.
Yeah.
The people we're afraid of are the ones who need to be locked up.
Yeah.
But the guys who we're mad at, they're not happy with themselves either. Okay? Mm-hmm. Believe me, they're mad at themselves. So let's help them get the treatment they need so they can be a productive member of society. But we also have to hold them accountable for their actions.
Yeah.
And as county attorney, will differentiate between those kind of people and promote safety and promote law and order as a way of life in this community.
Well, we definitely need a change. I can't take a side, but I absolutely love what you're saying, because right now people don't feel safe walking out their doors. I'm nervous when my kids drive away that something's going to happen to them.
But my 82-year-old mother-in-law can't go to the pharmacy to get her prescription because she's afraid.
It's ridiculous.
Of a carjacking. That is a sad state of affairs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, again, we like what you said, and hopefully if people see this, they'll have a better decision to make when they start voting on the ballot. So when is that election? Is it in May?
May 17. I would invite people to go to our website, David Holton for countyattorney.com. You can find us on Facebook at David Holton for Jefferson County Attorney, or follow me on Twitter at Judge Holton. So those are the ways you find us. Those are the way you can join our efforts. May 17 is a Democratic primary. If you're a registered Democrat, you can vote for us then. If you're not a registered Democrat, then you can wait for me in November and vote then, whether you're an independent or Republican. I don't think that, honestly, prosecutors' elections ought to be party-based. I think it should be nonpartisan.
I agree with you. I think at this point, the way society is, we need to vote for the person that has a plan to keep criminals off the streets, and it shouldn't be based on Democrat or Republican to me, as far as I'm concerned. It's got to be the person that says, I've had enough of this. When I can't trust that my mother-in-law's not going to get mugged when she goes to the store, I've had enough, then we got to fix it.
Well, perhaps we need a constitutional amendment to end partisan elections for county attorney and Commonwealth attorney, and let it be nonpartisan like our judges' races are. Yeah,
I'm that's a whole topic for another time. But I tell you, I'm sick and tired of two parties running this country, and I think we got to get back to voting for the person that's going to make a difference, and not because of what party they belong to. So, like I said, it's got to be somebody that's going to try and do something good for the community, and so hopefully people will take that into account when they start voting this year.
The same old answers to the same old problems.
We're not getting anywhere.
Doesn't work.
No. What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over.
Expecting a different result, right?
Yeah. So if you're tired of the crime, make yourself educated on the candidates that are running in
Jefferson County Attorney race.
Jefferson County Attorney race coming up May 17th. So, well, David, thanks so much for being in here.
Thanks,
hopefully
Mike.
We can get you in here again one day. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
All right. Well, next time I want to talk to Kelly instead of you, Mike.
Yeah, I know. She stays quiet over here. She's going to tell people how they can help.
Well, there's smoke coming out of her ears. All right. She's thinking.
We're trying to get her more engaged. She's just too quiet over here.
No, I just learned a whole lot.
Yeah.
In 45 minutes. I was taking it in.
Taking notes.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much,
Hey,
David,
thank
for
you.
coming
And
in.
thank you for what you do for this community in Shirley's Way.
We're trying.
It's a great service and one that's definitely needed. And I'm happy to assist Shirley's Way any way I can.
Well, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you all. And go Valley Station, right?
That's exactly right.
We're all Valley Stationers.
We are.
It's hilarious. Kelly, how can people help Shirley's Way? Wrap it up for us.
Sure. Go out to our website, shirleysway.org. Sign up to become a $10 monthly donor. We would love to have you a part of our mission. If you want to start in our raffles, we have 3 of them weekly, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. queenofheartslive.org, jokerswildlive.org, and wheelofcashlive.org. So lots of ways to help out. Check out some of our events coming up this year as well if you're interested in that.
Sounds good. David, one last time, if people want to learn about your campaign, what's the website?
David Holton for countyattorney.com.
And the elections, the primaries are
May 17 is a Tuesday.
Yep. All right.
6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Let your voices heard. Get educated on what the county attorneys do and what they're responsible for. And we will talk to you next time. Thanks.
See ya.